Hi, 3DMJers. This is Andrea Valdez, and you are listening to the 3D Muscle Journey podcast. In this episode, I'm joined by Alberto Nunez and Eric Helms as we talk about finding your way in the fitness industry. As a team, we get a ton of requests and inquiries about this topic pretty often. Usually, it's about becoming a coach. Sometimes it's about becoming some other type of internet entrepreneur, but collectively, it seems that many of our listeners would appreciate some of our feels and advice on how to make it in fitness. So we start this particular conversation about the one job we actually did all have in common as personal trainers at some point, then venture into a whole bunch of other professional endeavors that have led us to where we are today. So really hope you guys like this one. Here is Finding Your Way in the Fitness Industry with Alberto Nunez and Eric Helms. Okay, so Eric, you're the one person that's a bodybuilding coach that I know that's like, I always wanted to be a bodybuilding coach. Like,
I don't know about always, but definitely once I got into lifting weights, I knew that I did it for bodybuilding, and I knew that I wanted to work in bodybuilding. And very, very quickly I realized the only way to do that was as a trainer.
What year did you decide that? Like, what year are we talking?
Probably 2006.
Wow.
So I had a very brief period in 2005 where I was just like, I'm just going to get huge, and didn't really think about it too much. But I was thinking about bodybuilding, but not necessarily competitive bodybuilding. But then probably 2006 is where I started thinking about that. And then late 2006, I found out about natural bodybuilding, got introduced to Lane Norton, saw that was a career viable path. And then that was when I started working as a personal trainer a little bit before that.
But you were working as a personal trainer with the intention of, I will eventually be a bodybuilding coach. That was a question, I guess, not my bad.
Yeah, and I'm actually trying to remember the timeline exactly. I think I knew that I wanted to train people interested in strength and hypertrophy and bodybuilding.
Okay.
And then it didn't really become natural bodybuilding until I attended a show and then I got asked to test judge and then got introduced to the forums. So it was somewhere evolving late 2005, early 2006. But I was already a personal trainer interested in bodybuilding in general.
And you treated all of your Gen Pop clients like they were going to get on stage, right?
Oh. Yeah, I will, but not even doing that well, you know. So, no, I was a very bad personal trainer at first. That's for sure.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Never mind. We'll get into like why you probably were a good one. Just never mind. We'll get into all that later. Okay, so Berto.
Oh, that's bad.
No, but you weren't. I bet you were great at. You were probably on time. You probably cared about them. You probably gave them the information as best you knew to give it to them. You kept them motivated. I'm sure you kept it like. Because we've seen like
I wasn't late. I did care.
Yes.
And I told them the wrong information that I thought was right.
I think that's like a lesser of evils question though, right? That was the best that you could do. And like we've been to every like 24-hour in Golds and been like, this can't be the best that people can do, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's
that's fair enough. Yeah. I wanted to be good, but I was bad. So that's a positive character trait.
Okay, so Bert, when did you start personal training? Or did you? It was like, hey, homie.
No, I did PT.
Okay.
I did PT. Yeah, formally. I did that at 24-Hour Fitness when I was 19, and I absolutely thought that was exactly what I wanted to do. I'm like, this is it. I can see myself doing this. But it didn't take very long for me to realize that wasn't what I wanted. I think the population that I was working with wasn't exactly nearly as similar to myself as I thought. And I realized that right away. And then I think it was also a shitty way to get into the fitness industry as a PT. My intro could have been a lot better. And every once in a while, like I see PTs at my gyms and I'm like, I could see myself having like 4 or 5 general population clients and just like having something totally different in my day. You know, I could, in the right setting, I think I would have thrived, but that was the wrong setting for many reasons. But I did formally PT for a while. It was all right.
It was all right. When did you, I know you had a lot of like the like waiter jobs and like all that other stuff, but when did you say I want to actually work to help people get to the stage?
See, I didn't really understand how that dynamic worked as a coach, like a
Okay.
bodybuilding coach. I knew there was Charles Glass, and then like after that, it was just like everyone just did their own thing, right?
And they just showed up
Uh,
on stage.
yeah, yeah. I think it wasn't until, well, like I did hone my skills when it came to working with just a wide array of people. This was just from like spending way too much time in the gym growing up. I think it gets to a certain point where, you make some gains and then everyone else acknowledges and they're admiring your gains, right? And they ask you questions. And I remember training with my buddies when I first got rolling with this, and I realized that I responded just a little bit differently than they would to training. So I was like, I'm not necessarily like working that much harder than you guys. It's just kind of working out in my favor, right? So I knew that there was a big gap in how my understanding of how things worked. So that to some extent, I feel is what got me curious about how things worked, so that when people would ask me in the gym, I know exactly what to tell them. Because like for me, it was as simple as like show up, work really hard, be consistent, and you'll be fine. To a certain point, it was that way. But I honed my skills from just talking to people and being like the local like gym authority for many years.
Yeah.
Um,
Are you still there?
Picked up a lot of little subtle things from there.
Okay.
But it wasn't until 2007 that I knew there was people who specialize in coaching bodybuilders, Dr. Joe, Lane Norton. I knew they were out there, but I at no point saw myself doing that in any formal way. It wasn't until I think like 2008 that I'm like, I'm kind of doing this for free, but I'm doing this, And that's just because like information was so bad back then that every once in a while I'd grab a kid and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna save you from what you're about to do. And things got rolling in that manner, but there was no specific goal in mind to be that at some point. No.
Okay. Isn't that crazy how, or not crazy in real life crazy, but like it blows my mind how now if you go to any like say undergrad and like half of them like want to be personal trainers or coaches in strength and conditioning, right? And I'm not even that much younger than y'all, but I don't remember anybody like wanting to do that. And now we get asked that all the time, like how to get into this industry.
It's definitely changed a lot.
Yeah, like so
I mean,
fast.
Back in the day, it was like, I'm sure Berto, I've experienced the same thing, like realizing it was an option to do this was seeing guys like Dr. Joe and Lane, and then being like, man, I got 10 private messages on the forums this week about my prep, and I've been answering them. Like, I couldn't monetize this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, monetize was good, right? Like, I could get money for this. They could send me a check for this, right? Sorry.
Yeah.
I just called you old.
Check.
Oh, no. I was like,
Cash by check.
Not calling it monetized.
But you know what I mean?
We
Like,
write checks at the grocery line. That's exactly how me and Eric Helms do it.
Correct. We're 2 years older than you.
I know, like 2. No, but I'm so behind in that regard, right? Like, I didn't even... Well, like, I coached before you guys, right? I was like 16 years old when I started coaching rec gymnastics. And then 17 coaching the younger team girls. And then I did that coaching competitive gymnasts forever. And it's... So when I did that until I was like 23, till I went to grad school, 24, 25, something like that, whenever I was in grad school and started actually looking the part of a figure athlete, kind of the same as you, Bert. Like, everyone just kind of noticed, you look really different than most, girls who just gained their freshman 15, right? Because I'm at OU. And so then that was how it started, too. It was like... But it was a really easy thing for me. I never formally did any personal training under an umbrella. It was always just like, yeah, I do that on the side of me being a grad assistant. I costs this much. I'll come to your house, or I can meet you at this gym that allows me to do it. Like, it was always for myself. And it was never, I guess, scary, because I'm like, dude, if I can run 15 adolescent kids for 4 hours a day, I can do you, you know? So it was pretty easy in that regard as far as like the human part of it. But just like you guys, I knew what I did, which was a complete obsessed competitor, and was like, how do I scale that back like 2 notches? And then the soccer mom should definitely do that, which obviously, as we know, like isn't gonna work. But it was the best we all knew how to do. Yeah. So I think, and y'all feel free to elaborate, I think that that's one of the most valuable things, because now when people ask us, I want to get into the fitness field, they mean like online coaching. They very rarely mean like, I want to work in a gym, at least us, right? Because that's what we do. When they ask me, they don't really mean like, I want to go to Gold's and work with 40 people a week. They mean like, how do I make money on the sides over the internet? Is that what y'all get to?
Yeah, most of the time it's people who want to do what we do. That's why they're contacting us, which I think is an intelligent thing to do. But at the same time, I really look back and think I benefited from having a lot of different jobs in the fitness field before landing here. You know, like I was a personal trainer for, 5 years before I just became 3D Muscle Journey. And then I was a teacher of personal trainers for a year and a half. And I spent a year being a strength conditioning coach at a high school, and then I worked at a medical fitness facility. So like all of that together, I think it taught me a lot more about how varied people's personalities and needs are, and just how much a one size fits all doesn't really make sense. And just, it really helped me to realize how much what's optimal on paper is not the top priority of what you should be considering, but rather what's practical and what's pragmatic given the context of the person you're working with. And that, I think, really changed the way I started looking at research and coaching information and what calls to make, So, So I think when someone comes to me and they're like, how do I do what you do? I don't give them the, hey, just become an online coach thing. I'm like, well, there's a lot of soft skills and things that I developed working in, alternative areas to here that I think gave me a foundation to be more successful. Because this isn't a call out to anyone specific, but I've met and worked with and seen coaches who have only worked online, and there is some things missing that I would like to, that I would hope that I appreciate that I don't have missing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess too, there's always that specification, like you said, you recognize that there's so many different people in the world that need different things from their coach, trainer, whatever. I think what's important when someone wants to get into the online space, though, is, when you decide I want to be a personal trainer, and even if it is like for myself, right? I was limited to the people that were asking me in my local community and were willing to make this drive to this place or whatever, right? And I think when you label yourself like, I'm a coach online, but you're like, bring on everybody, and if there's no specification, then I think that's where it gets, I think a lot of people get diluted, if that makes sense. Like, everything's unclear. No one knows who you're serving. Because eventually, it's supposed to be a business. And what I think what sucks about the ease of being an online coach logistically, I think, is that because it's so easy to start on the side for like $20 or whatever, or free, that you don't run it like a business, and you don't come off professional. You don't have systems in place. You don't say, this is who I work with, because if it is, people do things for money, and it's just so easy to get a hold of you. And so I think with a lot of things, we've talked about this as the sport of bodybuilding in general, but definitely too with online coaching, it's like the ease and the low barrier of entry to get into this thing, I think, makes it sloppy a lot of the times.
I would agree with that. And, I hate the term, and it's really annoying to see it, but like the branding and crafting a personal avatar, all that, bullshit business speak. But there's a point to that, and it's basically just clarity, because people won't buy into or buy things or even remember things that they can't categorized in their brain. That's the way we work. We develop schemas. So if I can't recall who you are and what you do and what your specialty is, or what makes you you, then you're probably not an option for me to work with.
Right.
So I think, yeah, while it might be good just to be out there and be like, oh, I'm an online fitness coach and I train everyone, you'll probably actually get less people if you're that broad. And you also will have a very difficult time designing a web page and social media websites and profiles that clearly state what you do besides fitness,
Yeah, like fitness is so broad
Mm-hmm.
in general. And I think too, something to your point of like, or we both made the point, right? Yeah, it helps to like be specific and have a clear message and all that stuff. But if we all three go back a few years, when we were personal trainers or when I first started being online or whatever, there's something to be said to like just kind of fucking around.
Yep.
There's something to be said for tinkering and finding that place. Like you could think you want to serve a certain population. You work with 5 or 10 of them, and you're like, okay, and now that one's out, and now this is what I want to work with. And I think that is a lot easier when you don't come out the gates and say like, okay, pay me for my services. I think free work, we've all done it. We all started for free.
Yep.
I think everything I've ever done, if you do it just for the money, I feel like you tend to make quicker, irresponsible decisions.
Yeah. And I think also people sometimes misunderstand what the free work might look like. That might be a couple of years of just being on Facebook or on the various social media platforms, in your Instagram messages, and just answering questions, answering DMs, answering PMs, engaging in Facebook discussions in a respectful way, and really kind of earning your chops and interacting with people and giving help to people just to help your community and becoming known, so that when you make the announcement, it's like, there's going to be 500 people waiting in the wings going, yeah, I was wondering, I think I saw that coming. You obviously have talent and you know your stuff, kind of thing.
Right. And that's the thing is, like, we could say, when I say free work, I mean, you don't necessarily get money for it, but you're creating, like you said, like, it's your billboard. It's your marketing message. It's your mail out. It's your whatever. And social media is free too, right? So it's, creating a following so that when you say shit, people are actually there to listen a little bit. Because I think before...
Also,
go ahead.
I was going to just say also for all the very practical, analytical people listening who are going, right, so how do you make money during these years of free work? I think people also just need to appreciate that fitness is one of those industries where you're going to have a day job until you, quote unquote, make it. And make it just means that you actually figure out a viable business for yourself.
Right.
Like when 3D Muscle Journey started, our first full year of being 3D Muscle Journey, we made $4,000 between the 4 of us. So that's like $1,000 a person, and it wasn't until 2011 until some of us started dropping our day jobs.
That's a great point.
Personally, yeah, it wasn't until 2012 when I moved to New Zealand that I was like, all right, that's actually all I'm going to do for income, is coach. And, so yeah, and Jeff was able to bridge from having basically his severance package from the auto plant, or he would have had to pick up a second job too. And then Brad still works, and I know Berto had jobs at the public school system until 2011, 2012.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we all had to grind for 2 to 3 years before, on a second job before we could make our dream job, or our actual job, our only job.
Yeah, and another thing to speak to that too is that when you are doing, say your goal is to be that full-time online coach, there's no reason that this day job can't contribute. Like you said, you were personal training, you were working at public school, you were teaching personal trainers. I was getting my master's in exercise physiology, getting paid teaching undergrad classes. So it's, I think a lot of people think that it's, this day job is a waste of time until I make it. Or it's like you can kind of choose that part though, And even if it's not directly related to fitness, like if I'm the freaking front desk person somewhere, I'm learning how to deal with people. Like I'm learning how the back end of a business works so that when I do start mine full time, I know some of the business practices or whatever, you know, it all, I think that's just a general thing in life. Like if you can realize that every single job or every task through the day can contribute to you becoming a better at anything, including this online bodybuilding coach, then it becomes less painful to wait, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think some of the best coaches out there, kind of like Eric hinted, you know, that we've had a chance to meet, and we're like, wow, you're actually like very well-rounded and solid, and you're very adaptive, I feel, and I would feel very comfortable actually sending someone to you. Like when I stop and think about what makes them different, it's they did something with all of their experiences along the way. They picked up something from there. It wasn't just like, I have to sit through this like fucking chem class that I just absolutely hated. They picked up something from there, and I think that's super important. And the people who rush into it, that's kind of like, it's like, man, past like the spreadsheet and the numbers, you're not that good at what you do.
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually a really good point. It's like I was talking to one of the grad students here at FAU, and here, because I'm currently in Florida while this is being recorded, and I'm not going to call him out by name, but he's an incredibly intelligent, smart guy. He's competed. He's getting his master's, and he's just someone who I would trust really, like, completely to be a coach and to give advice to people. And he is not as confident in his abilities as I am as confident in his abilities. I told him, in this career in general, and not even necessarily just fitness, this applies to life, I would rather have someone who is has enough self-belief to keep pushing to get stronger and better and more qualified, but is a little lacking in confidence than I would have someone who thinks they already know it, or is on the other side of it, where they are just like, everything's just a barrier or an annoyance before I actually get to do what I'm doing. Like Bert said, they don't find the way to make the class that seems like an annoying, distracting class apply to their life. Like, not to put myself on a pedestal, but I had to take sport economics and sport law, and I figured out a way to design my classes to make sense and to benefit me in some way, and to research and read and do things that had some relationship towards what I wanted to do. I didn't just sit there and pout and get a B minus C plus, and really trying to be intentional with all the things I'm doing that may only relate or help you get to where you're going by purposeful, intentional, investment in it. And also always comparing myself to the highest standard of coach I could think of right at that time. Like, I was always like, all right, I'm going to be an online coach. Am I as good as Dr. Joe? Oh, so need to keep working on that kind of thing in my mind. And I think a lot of coaches are like, yeah, I'm good enough. Like, yeah, come on, I can do this, and it's kind of like, well, maybe you're not, and it's okay to put yourself out there when you're not at your best yet, but you just need to be aware of that. Like, self-awareness is like, not being good yet is where we all start. And so long as you have self-awareness, that's okay. But if you don't, then you're going to stay as a shitty coach.
Yeah. And I think a good way to, because I had those fears too. If I didn't come on with 3D, I would not have done bodybuilding coaching by myself. I have no problem saying that. I online coached Gen Pop, people who already knew how to count macros. Like, I'd say a few of the people that I coached in like 2014 online by myself as Andrew Valdez probably will be competing in the next 3 to 5 years, but I knew actual get you to stage, I wasn't confident with. Even though I got asked all the time, I wasn't confident with it. And I was, it's flattering, but that was actually really hard for me at times when I did need that financial security. And someone's like, but I'll pay you to prep me. And I was like, I just fucking can't. And now, and I don't know if it was, I think that was the two thing. The twofold is like, being aware that I had you guys as a support system. So it's like, that's another step to someone who's, I know that my fear isn't uncommon. I know a lot of good Gen Pop coaches who are scared to take someone actually to the stage. And I think something that's, I guess, a good step for them would be, okay, is your Gen Pop or maybe above average coaching business doing well enough to where you could maybe hire someone on the side to consult with when you have big decisions to make with a prep athlete. So, like, I get the beauty of asking, like, when I have a question, I'll just, like, ask you guys or in our meetings or whatever. But that's something that I would pay for, you know? Because it's very niche. I'd say if I had someone who wanted to be a bodybuilding coach that I knew was a good online fitness coach in general, I would think of maybe 10 people at the most. I'd be like, you should contact them and see if they'll Skype with you. Because it's so small.
Mm-hmm.
But... Or find people that know you well enough to kind of say, like, it's okay, I trust you, go ahead. But I don't know, that was really hard for me. It wasn't being an online coach that was scary to me. It was being a bodybuilding coach.
Right. Andrea, can I ask you a question, even though I know you're the only one who asks questions in these things?
You can ask me questions whenever you want. You know I'll talk forever.
Am I allowed, though? You're
No.
you're the podcast host.
I'll cut this show off so fast. No, go ahead. I'll press stop right now.
Because and correct me if I'm wrong, after you were a gymnastics coach and once you started your YouTube channel and got into fitness, your intention was not, I'm going to start my coaching business. It was, I'm going to create a fitness-based business that exists online. But your goal was not to online coach as, I mean, you're doing that now, but it's still not the largest component to your day-to-day work or your income. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
So yeah, I think it would be cool because this is something I've come into secondary to coaching for me. Like, I wrote books and now I'm shifting more towards where you initially started. So what was your kind of thought process and plan to do that and make that a viable living? Being a fitness information provider and community builder? I'm trying to say, I'm not sure what the best label is for it.
The goal was always create a living making passive streams of income and now, you know, with the pyramids, they're not entirely passive, but making streams of income in places that I like, and I love sports and athletics and fitness. That was always like the big broad goal, was like, how do I work for myself in a way that creates enough freedom so that one, I like it, but two, that I have enough freedom to have my own athletic and life goals. Lower than that, it's like, okay, at the time, I'm all about figure. I feel like I have a lot to offer. Everyone in my space has asked me about it. That's what I'm going to create content about. It started with the ebooks and all that stuff, and I'm the opposite of everything we've talked about so far. When the coaching, because that has always been like something I've done in my life, was okay, I'll do this to make money until my ebooks make enough to fund me. So it was actually the flip-flop.
Well, that's because we spent a lot of time talking about how to get into coaching, which I think is valuable. But we've talked about that ad nauseum, and people, they want to check out the SBS Academy, et cetera. I think it would be cool, like, for people who are interested in potentially getting into just having a content marketer, passive, a content marketer. There you go. That's a good one.
Or an online marketer, internet entrepreneur, whatever. I think something important in that regard, which is the same as coaching for free till you feel comfortable, have the following, blah, blah, blah. I think before I made my first ebook, I had made probably 200 free videos on the YouTubes. Lord knows how many hours that took. I moved to California with a little bit of money I had saved from grad school teaching in Herbalife selling. And that was to be by Bert so I can know my coach in real life, which is more content for the YouTube channel. So yeah, that was like a good year investment before I made my first $100 probably, to be honest.
So the same kind of thing, you still have to invest before you
and of
find
course,
any success.
Yeah, doing it now, I mean, I would obviously have less of a difficult time, but that was everything self-taught, no employees, I don't recommend it. It was stressful as fuck. Like, let's say,
yeah,
ask me more about that, because it's just,
let's say little boy comes up to you And by little girl, little boy in our speak, that's someone in their 20s. So, yes, I hope that offends you if you're in your 20s, because I like offending people who are little boys and little girls.
He's just mad.
And they come up to you and they say, hey, I'm just mad I'm old, yeah. And they say, hey, I want to be someone who's provides information and helps the community. How do I makes money from it? How do I do that, Andrea?
I would say start doing it for free for 6 months to a year and see how it goes. Pick 2 places. Mm-hmm. Mine was YouTube, and then it was a blog. Now it could be maybe your Snapchat and Instagram or whatever. But I'd say pick 1 or 2 places, dive hard, like real hard for 6 months to a year without any expectations in return. Then you'll learn who likes you. You can ask them questions. You'll learn what works, what doesn't work. Do you even like these couple of platforms? Do you like this lifestyle? Because I actually turns out I don't really want to film like every second of every day and every meal. But I did for a while. It helped me with everything. But I would say be prepared to invest a lot of time.
But that whole filming yourself every minute of your life and vlogging your life as a personality, that's only one way you have to go.
That's true.
Yeah.
But there are a lot. Now though, it's interesting how now that's very rare that's actually, here's me living as an athlete. Now it's very, here's my lifestyle. So there's a lot of lifestyle marketing now, which is completely different. But there's also like you've talked about the in-between person, right? Someone which I feel like I was, because even though my vlogs were on my channel, I still had informational videos, and almost everything on my blog was, here are the 3 best articles I've read on refeeds. Here's the summary. Here are the 3 famous people who are more credible than I who said this, and here it is. So it's like you have to. So
I want to dwell on that for a second.
Go ahead.
I want to dwell on that for a second, because I think the people who piss me off the most and who don't do a good job and who end up getting flack from the experts and end up burning bridges in the industry are the ones who don't just acknowledge that they know their lane really well, and other lanes they don't know. And if people want that information, go here. Like people who are probably, I don't know, whether it's ego or whether it's just they feel that's what you have to be the guru. Like you have to know everything. Mm-hmm. But one thing you've always done, Andrea, which has always impressed me, is like you share information and you're comfortable sharing. Like your books for bodybuilders and figure competitors and for eating are all based on highly practical in the trenches experience that is also unique. But there's people out there who barely have an understanding of exercise science and nutrition who try to just basically replicate, and they just do like a 1/10 of good of a job as an Alan Aragon or a Lau McDonald. And because they think that's the only way to do it. And I think like Matt Ogus or Omar Isuf or there are all people who put out very good quality of information. Yet when it comes time to do something that's outside of their area of expertise and what they're good at and comfortable with, they're totally fine with collaborating. And it makes their channel richer. It expands their base, and they never end up looking like an egotistical person who is totally wrong.
Yeah, and I think what people miss, and it sounds so cheesy, but it's like do it for 6 months consistently. And I don't mean consistently like, I would even say like the consistency that 3D does right now all across everything, that works for us now because we're established. If we were starting out, we'd get nowhere right now because it's just so noisy. Like, I mean, I made 3 to 4 YouTube videos a week, posting on everything else every day, at least twice a day. It was, and I'm not saying that you have to do it that way. Again, there's probably smarter ways, but at the time it was not as crowded, and it was obvious to me we're getting very rewarded for just straight effort and consistency. And I don't think you have to be necessarily that different, but the big thing is throughout that effort and consistency, not only do I have like this body of work to point people to, but then I have all these people that kind of will follow me most places I go. And I know it used to be a lot bigger of a following, but there's a lot of people that are still in my life right now that started watching my channel in 2012 or 2013, and so it's more about like creating the audience, and it doesn't necessarily mean audience, like finding your friends that are like your cheerleaders. Like you guys still talk to people from the forums.
Yeah.
And I think and when you operate from a place of I'm up here and there's all those followers versus like, hey, I'm in this with you guys. What do you need? Can I help you? Because I was way more active with helping my community at first, too. I would stay up absurd amounts. Like, I answered every email, every DM, and now I can't do that. But at the time, like you said, it's just serve these people, serve somebody for free for a long time, and they almost feel like anything. Like, and then to that point, when I made my first ebook, I pre-sold it because I had to make rent that month, and I had these people that knew that I would at least give it to them when I said I would, and it would be good, you know, because I pre-sold it a month before. Yeah. And you can't do that shit if nobody knows who you are. Like,
yeah.
And here's something that kind of goes back to your story, and this is kind of how we use you and why you are an essential part of the team, especially now, is the fact that you didn't start out as a coach. You went this other way, took this other road that like we're not all that familiar with. I think Eric is, out of all of us, probably at this point, I say actually quite a bit more familiar with that side of things because of you.
But only because of Andrea. You know, I would have never written a book if she hadn't been like, hey, you should write a book, you know?
But it's one of those things where during the time when you were giving, when you were just doing things for free, it's also a good time to identify what you're good at. Like, there's some people out there that just honestly, they might not be a good coach. They're just not wired for that, and that's okay. And I think of people who who are in the fitness industry right now, that they're just completely doing something different, but within it. And a good example of this is Brandon Wells, your sweetie, right?
Yeah.
You know, we love Brandon, but he's not the best athlete in the world. He's not, you know, he doesn't live the grind like some people do. He has no ambitions of wanting to coach and help people out necessarily. That's not his thing. But through this, he found his one thing that he can do that, in my opinion, and I'm a little biased, he does better than like anyone else. Yeah. And that was like I have so much free media from him. Yeah. From just when he was kind of playing around with his lenses, buying all sorts of new gadgets, and I mean, look at the kid now, and that's his route. So you can contribute in just many different ways. You can be a video editor for someone who has a lifestyle / fitness channel, and that's what you do. So you don't have to be a coach necessarily. You might not be wired for that, but surely as this becomes bigger. And I do see the fitness industry just only growing because like we're only getting fatter, and there's a few people who like kind of catch on to them. They're like, shoot, I need to, you know, get on the Instagrams and get better. Yeah. I see it growing in more jobs opening up for people with different strengths.
Yeah, and to speak to that too, like you said, that you don't have to be a coach, and I think that there's, even within coaching, different ways of doing it. Like, we do one-on-one coaching, but lots of people make like, here's my membership site where we Catalyst Athletics is like, hey, you sign up for this. You know, a lot of CrossFit gyms do this now. Like our coach CJ from in CrossFit Invictus or whatever, like, I pay you $30 a month and you give me programming every day. Not just me. I get it's all people in my same level, but that's a way of coaching that doesn't have to rely so much on your personal skills, a little more on your numbers knowledge. Or you could write a book like the pyramids. You know, Lyle has tons of books. I don't think does he do personal coaching? Lyle McDonald?
No, I think he does. I don't want to put that out there like he does, because people will email him. But he has coaching and personal training experience. It's not something he would advertise that he says he does. He's worked with some people, some powerlifting gals in his area and things like that. I don't want to put him on to blast too much, though.
Oh, my bad.
Don't email Lyle to coach with him. It will go
and if you do, it was Holmes. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He's one of the 5 people. He's one of the 5 people on Lyle's good side. Eric and the dogs.
Yeah. Exactly.
You were recommended by Holmes.
Exactly.
Anyways, yeah, that's a good point with Brandon. And I guess we should say, too, for those of you listening, if you don't know, my boyfriend's a fitness photographer. Well, I guess a photographer in general, but most of it has blown up from doing work in fitness. And, that is probably still 90% free. He gets paid good for his big jobs. Yeah.
He did all the photographs in the muscle and strength pyramids.
Yeah. So he gets paid bigger bucks for bigger jobs now, but in between, I mean, the only way you learn that shit is by playing. So I'd say still, again, like 80-90% of it's unpaid. And not unpaid like, oh, I'll work for everybody, but like, this is me experimenting with my equipment. I mean, shit, there's libraries of me sitting in the living room right there. You know, like, because he needs to play with whatever he's got going on, you know, whatever new equipment. But
why drew that apple? I was taking pictures of it, Andrea.
I know. Get in trouble all the time. He's like, here's this hat and this mask and these sunglasses. Go stand over there. I'm like, what? But yeah, that's a damn good point. And as far as it's like a
like
gift.
we outsource all the time because there's just certain things we're not good at, and you know maybe there's someone who's
how many times have I paid Bryce for a new Excel program? You know?
Yeah.
Shout out to the
BL.
The 105's world champ.
Okay, yeah.
Well, not world champ, world record holder. Sorry.
Damn, there was something I was gonna say too. Okay, so that all that free shit I did to build my channel to sell ebooks and shirts and whatever. It was scrappy as shit. It was difficult. It probably wasn't right, but because of all that shit I fumbled through, we also kind of tend to forget. That's how I became a coach. Mm-hmm. With you guys, you know, those were the things that I did for y'all, again, for free later on, being like, I knew how to sell ebooks then, so then I approached Jeff first for his posing guide and then Eric for the pyramids as like, you guys have this amazing skill set. Let me put it on paper or put it in whatever document so that it can be seen by more people who don't have time to watch videos all the time or whatever, you know, and, I don't know. I think you're right that the whole main thing of this is like, it's not, I want to be an online coach, so I expect to do nothing but coach. And if I read enough books, it'll be there and people will give me the money and I'll have a business and life will be great. Like there's just so much shit to it.
Yeah, but it can be scary, and it's like most things that are frontiers with a lot of opportunities are awesome and also highly intimidating.
Yeah.
You know, like you're only limited by your creativity and your willingness to put yourself out there. Mm-hmm. And really, you just have to take solace in the fact that no one has ever really failed who kept trying, you know, especially in an open industry with lots of opportunities. You'll figure out something that works. You know, who's a great example or the organization that's a great example is Shredded by Science.
Yeah.
Like, literally that started as Luke Johnson on the Facebook forums talking to a couple of his friends going, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we had Alan Aragon out here for a conference in London? And then he just asked. And then he was like, oh, shit, I got to figure out how to put on a conference. And then it went really well, and he did it with, like, 4 other people. And then he was like, well, I can do this as an online seminar. And he's like, well, hold on, I can hire a bunch of the top fitness professionals, pay them well, and give content. Hold on, I can start a personal training certification. Next thing you know, he's got a bunch of coaches working under him. They coach. He's doing a personal training certification. He does seminars. He's taken over, evidence-based fitness in London by storm, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't even know how he did it. He got 300 people to come to our 3DMJ, conference. That's more than we've ever gotten for any of our own shit, you know? So,
yeah.
Yeah. By a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, just like we would say, get a coach. You want to get on stage, you got to get a coach or whatever. Same thing. Like if I could do it all over again too, I'd buy whatever online program. I'd find someone, but I would be just as careful about the research I do. Okay, does this person have the integrity they want? Do they have a lifestyle I want? Is the end goal? Because of all the business coaches, there's the straight hustle, your face off. There's, make enough to survive your life or whatever. And there's people all in the middle. But it's like find one that has built an empire similar to the one you want to be, whether that's a big one or a small one. And they probably offer an online coaching program and just sign up for that shit. Or buy the book, or whatever. But it's just like anything else you want to get good at, right? That's what I would do if I did start over. Yeah, I know, right?
No, I'm asking.
What? If business coaching is a thing?
Hey, you're talking to a guy who reads exercise physiology, not.
Yeah, there's tons.
I have Gary V's book over there, but I only know of him because you told me, and I only got it because Luke gave it to me while I was in London.
Yeah, and he doesn't, and he actually doesn't do one-on-one coaching, but his business is taking companies and creating their social media empire, like big companies.
Right.
Big. Now he has. Oh, sorry.
Most of our audience is a bunch of bodybuilders and bodybuilding coaches and people like that. So
I forget.
So business coaching is a thing.
Yeah, it's totally a thing. And it's the same as all the options we talked about here. There's definitely online membership sites. There's actually people who, I mean, you can go to freaking a few $1,000s for an event, or you can do, again, membership sites. You could buy certain books. You could just follow people online and listen and whatever. Do you want me to give names of people I like? Would that be useful, do you think?
You can. They won't mean anything to me, but go for it.
It won't mean anything to me. I'm trying to think. Well, it depends, too, what you want to do. But creating businesses online, I mean, shit, when I first started was different than now. So there's Youpreneur by Chris Ducker. There's Entrepreneur on Fire, which is John Lee Dumas. I'm trying to think of when I started. Smart Passive Income by Pat Flynn. Ramit Sethi just made out with a program. I forget what it's called. How to Make 1K by AppSumo guys.
I think I read the first chapter of Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Okay, that's good. I'm trying to think of just free things online that are yeah, there's tons of shit. Fizzle.co is a good one. A membership site for new businesses. There's a bazillion. Oh my God, I just realized that I made Steve's job really hard doing all that, but
yeah, sorry, Steve.
No, but I could probably name 30 others. It's just, again, if you care enough, it's there. The resources are there. It's just, I would have to argue that a lot of people that we're talking to, unless they're really young, if they're like, I don't know how to coach, how would I ever do it? Probably don't want to do it bad enough. Just like the same people are like, I kind of want abs, but it's if you really did, not abs necessarily, but if you want to get lean and grow muscle, you would do this research, right? Or hire a great coach. And it's if you can't be bothered, all the people that I just named, I can guarantee you, if I talk to any famous-ish fitness person that built their presence in the way that I did, that didn't just go straight into coaching like you guys did. Anyone that's come up in the last 5 years probably knows all those people I just named, but it's because they had to figure this shit out. And if you're not willing to read the books, get the program, listen to the podcast, whatever it is, watch the free YouTube videos, then it's by natural selection probably a good thing you didn't make it, instead of wasting your time trying to build an online business that you can't even be bothered to research for.
I almost feel like these days there are two facets you need to pay attention to because it's so crowded now, and that you have to think about building a business and getting yourself out there in a more intentional way, and actually develop the skill set of working in your business. In it and on it. Not that we had a meteoric rise to being awesome and huge in our community, but all we ever did was just argue with people online about flexible dieting. And
but it was a different time.
And that's the thing. That's exactly. Yeah, I'm not saying we did it wrong. I'm just saying it was a different time. And I think, if you look at, Lyle, Alan, Brett, Brad, myself, Lane, 3DMJ, I wouldn't even classify Joe in this, because Joe came up before the forums were even a thing. He came up actually in the WWF magazine. It was really just be a leader in your community, and then everything else falls into place, and be consistent and just keep crushing it, So I think now, because the community is so much larger, and the pace and the avenues for communication are so much more vast, and the miles per hour is up a lot. It's you won't really get your head above water enough just doing that these days.
Yeah.
Unless you are just such an incredible standout. So you've got to have a little bit of that. And I think the only reason. So I almost think it's probably a mistake to just look at what path did any of us take to get here, because it's probably not the same one you would need to take starting now in 2016, almost 2017.
Yeah. Well, and that's different than even me. So you guys say 2009, 2010 versus me 2013-ish. And then now here we are almost 2017. And like I said, if I was doing it now today, I would do it different.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's fast, and you're right, you can't follow anyone else's path, but you got to at least be looking forward, and again, just care enough to dive. I feel like just like bodybuilding, right? If like we had all those fuck ups, but we always said too, like we wouldn't take it back for the world, because if we went through that shit, we could do this forever, you know? And I think it's the same thing, like in business. Like I would say I've been online for 3 or 4 years, but I think the day-to-day job of my life has changed 5 or 6 times in those 3 or 4 years. You know, YouTuber to blogger to writer to ebook maker to t-shirt maker to website designer to whatever, you know, like it's always different. Now podcast host or whatever, now a coach. And so, like Berta said, just the being flexible, being open, paying attention.
Yeah, and I think people, it's the same thing as the way people follow bodybuilding information. Sometimes they're trying to look for what's the it, or what's the formula, or what's the good and what's the bad. That's inherently the wrong way of thinking. You know, you don't actually understand the principle to base your decisions on, and you're just a victim to the next, clickbait article. And I think those are the same principles hold true in getting yourself out there. Like, for example, Gary Vee will talk about you're running your business like it's 2007 or 2011 or 2008 or 2009. And people then will read that and sometimes they're thinking, okay, so what is the social media platform I should be using right now? And it's like, that's not the right question. The point is that you should be paying attention to whatever is current and whatever is currently being used and emphasized and where the movement is going, not just what's correct right now, because you're going to always be behind. So you kind of have to have a principle-based awareness of that.
Yeah.
And I think that I at least get that, even if I don't get a lot of other shit,
Another skill that I think we kind of have, because we've been doing this long enough, is you can see certain paths that are really going to go nowhere.
Yes.
Good example of this is, I think fitness is often overly sexualized, and there's a lot of young ladies out there who have built a following, right? Using not necessarily their savviness when it comes to what they understand in regards to getting people in their best shape, but they've used themselves, and it's like, you want a career here. Is that gonna work 10 years from now when like the next batch of like hot 20-year-olds come up and it's like you're no longer very valuable? So for some people, that's and I was having a conversation with a friend about this 2 weeks ago, and I was like, dude, you need to change up everything, because like it's like people don't go to your pace and they're like, that's my coach right there. They're there for the wrong reasons. That's a demographic that's going to buy nothing from you, because yeah. So I think that's overly important. And like I even think about this to some extent. Is like, I think a big reason that people hop on board initially on my bus is because it's always he's a good bodybuilder, and it crosses my mind. It's like, dude, you are like a fucking quad tear away, if that was all you had, from like being redundant, right? Like that definitely comes to mind. You need to think long term too, and some ways of getting there, perhaps like initially will give you a lot back, especially if we're talking perhaps money, or at least getting your name out there and building a platform, but they're just not sustainable, not at all. And that's something you definitely have to consider in this like fast food media type world that we live in. Yeah,
and that's hard too, because any other type of coach, whether it's, like we said, business coaching or dog training or cooking or whatever, right? Everyone that, I don't say everyone, but in order to be famous in those fields, you have to actually kind of be good in those fields. Whereas fitness is shady because like you can look good and people assume you know shit when you actually like haven't provided value besides like check out this IG square. And that's, we always say like, well, if you want to get into fitness, you have to at least look the part. But at the same time, if you only look the part, right, that's like a dog trainer that can't train dogs, or a business coach who has no money, or all that stuff. So it's, which again, because so much marketing is so visual now, that is kind of hard to see.
So you're saying I couldn't be a male gynecologist?
Hey, if you practice enough. If you practice enough, you know what you're talking about.
Oh, he looks pretty good, though. He looks like he's handled a lot of men's genitals, so I don't know.
No,
yeah, that's a great point.
no, not that one.
No, a gynecologist for males. I know what you meant.
No, not for males.
No, yeah, a male gynecologist. I get it. Yeah, you're only having males come out.
I'm just gonna sit here until we stop talking about vaginas.
We weren't. He's a male gynecologist. You don't get it. He's working with penises only.
That's not what they're called.
Do you understand that I'm making a joke to make him sound really gay? And
yeah, I know.
Quit messing it up.
Oh, sorry. You're so funny.
All right,
Thank
you got
it. That's
all right.
a appropriate response.
All right. What are we talking about? Building fitness.
Yeah, building. Well, the thing is
careers.
Now, well, yeah, like careers, you got to think long term. And one thing that keeps being brought up over and over is like giving. Like you need to give. Like the owner at like one of the gyms that I train, it's so frustrating because I'm like, dude, just give away your T-shirts. They're like hideous and they're overpriced. Like, just give them to everyone here. You need to give, and I think a lot of the people doing business like it's 2008 still they don't get that. Yeah. You need to give, and like we've seen it whenever we've gone on a hot streak of just like putting stuff out. It's like we end up having to like almost turn down business, like slow down, like we're doing this so we don't get this, but it indirectly happens, and those aren't even our intentions. So you have to give to people, or I think, not that anyone should email us about this, but if you have someone who's doing pretty good in the field related to what you want to get into, it wouldn't be a bad idea to, I don't know, do their busy work and kind of get your feet wet that way.
Which is weird because I did that for y'all with no intention of coaching. Not weird, but like that's the same as Brandon though takes pictures of you guys anytime he's around, right? Is because it's just a form of, it's just like a, what do you even call that? Almost like a peace offering, like a, this is my skill I want to give you because you're my friend. And then whenever you guys, then it's just like word of mouth, which matters.
It's networking.
Yeah. And it's not even, and the intentions, and it's weird because you can feel the intentions. Like, okay, you're doing this for me so that I'll do something for you versus like, okay, you're doing this for me. Like that's.
Yeah. And I think if that's difficult for you, like if you don't find yourself just giving and having to be really intentional about it and really racking your brain, you probably don't like what you're doing. Yeah. Like Brandon takes pictures everywhere he goes and takes pictures of us because he likes taking pictures and he likes creating images and capturing moments, and he's into fitness and bodybuilding, so it makes sense. Yeah. I spend a lot of time reading and thinking about, the stuff I do because I like doing it. I'm not like trying to shoehorn myself into it. So when I get into some random tirade or I do a podcast every single week on, like muscle hypertrophy, it's not like me thinking, how much do I have to give this week to get my get back? It's like, no, it's just what I do because I like it, Yeah. So, yeah. So, like, in the end, it all has to come from an underlying place of being super passionate about what you're doing and enjoying it. Yeah. And, being intrinsically motivated by the fact that you're doing it,
Yeah, and I want to talk about one more point, too, is, like, we talked about how fitness is so visual and, like, the IGs and you blow up or whatever. But there's still spaces in every industry for doing the type of work that you like, even like say you love muscle hypertrophy. Okay, so we do this podcast. I fucking love doing this podcast because I don't shut up, right? And I like talking to y'all. And we talked about all the ways that like externally benefits the team for bonding and purposes and whatever, and we get feedback, whatever. But someone like Lyle or Alan, they write. They're famous in the fitness industry. They're writers. You don't see them half naked all the time. They're just putting out the shit that matters to them. And I think that just because fitness, usually if someone is very fit, it creates this physical thing. That doesn't mean that that's the way you have to. There's space for that. And that's the thing is like we talk about dilution. Yeah, YouTube's diluted with fitness. Instagram is. But there aren't that many great writers that people can, put on, maybe 5, 10 that you can actually think of compared to the 3,000 YouTube channels, So I think that's it just made me think of what you said, being like, not only you're not passionate about it, but maybe this isn't you're passionate about the general thing, but you can find which avenue fits you best.
Which medium?
That's what I meant. Yeah.
I'm here for you. I'm your medium. Don't worry.
Okay.
Two uses of the same word for different purposes.
Yeah. God, Helms is so smart. I'm so glad we have you on the team.
That sounds sarcastic.
Anyways, what else about how do I become a coach?
Not just a coach.
Oh, not
no,
just
I
a
like
coach.
where this went. I like where this went. Just like doing what you. I mean, I think we're speaking to the people who absolutely love this and they want to make this a part of their lives and, go to work without it feeling like it's work.
Yeah. I think another thing.
Yeah, really do. It feels natural. I don't know how much. I think we can't overemphasize that enough. Like, it's funny. We said find the mentor and model after certain careers and, get a coach and that stuff. But at the same time, like if you've got a good physique, but you feel like you have to put a bunch of shit on Instagram all the time and you've got to make your physique your talking point. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Like, especially if you're good at communicating verbally or if you're good at writing or if you're good at, any other medium, like go with that. Like, I'm not like a fantastic bodybuilder, but I've got a better physique than most people. And I could be doing physique shots and filming my training all the time, but I don't want to. Like, I do it sometimes when I want to. I used to do it more, but I just don't now. And I don't want to. So I do other things that I enjoy doing more. It's that simple.
Yeah. Whereas I could film myself training all day. I film myself training all day. I really like it.
Correct. Yeah.
I do like it. Man, I was going to say something when Berto was talking and he said that this went in a good place.
You like the direction it went? You were thinking something about being an online coach. I said really just fitness career in general.
Oh, okay. I got it. I got it.
I want to make a note there.
No, that you only have to be like a couple steps ahead of somebody in order to coach them. I think too, if your goal is to be a bodybuilding coach, you probably should start Gen Pop. And then when you get a little better, be like, okay, now I'm only taking people who already know how to count their macros. I just give them assignments based on this. Okay, you don't need in-person form. I'm assuming if you're signed on, then you need to already be good enough for XYZ. Like, you can create parameters as you go year after year. And like, so you can start taking money for your services as Gen Pop and then slowly move into what you need to be. It's not like I'm not coaching or I'm a bodybuilding coach. I think people forget that too. Because really the skills is, like I said, is in the coaching. If you just keep studying and keep reading books, like, you'll get smart enough to be a bodybuilding coach. It's the softer skills that take longer to develop because you can't plan for that. You can't plan for people's reactions, but you just acquire that, Rolodex over time. Okay, that was all.
That's a good way of putting it.
Thanks. Yeah. I think I'm done talking to y'all.
Okay.
Good episode, team. Talk to y'all next week. Bye.